This forgotten spy sitcom was rushed to television as ABC's desperate answer to their biggest mistake, turning down Get Smart, only to become a cautionary tale of what happens when networks panic. From Oscar winners paired with impossibly young love interests to theme songs that spoiled the plot and a behind-the-scenes producer swap that couldn't save it, Henry Phyfe's short life was stranger than fiction. Fact 1. ABC's desperate Get Smart regret. The story of how the double life of Henry Phyfe made it to television is really a story about one of the biggest mistakes in TV history. Back in 1965, the comedy legends Mel Brooks and Buck Henry pitched a spy spoof series called Get Smart to ABC executives, hoping the network would greenlight their show about a bumbling secret agent named Maxwell Smart. But the ABC executives absolutely hated it. They didn't just reject the show, they called Brooks and Henry's concept un-American and demanded bizarre changes that would have completely destroyed the entire premise. According to Brooks, the network insisted that Maxwell Smart needed to come home to his mother after every mission and explain everything he'd been doing, which would have turned a sharp spy parody into just another predictable family sitcom. They also wanted the show to include a lovable dog to give it more heart, completely missing the point of what Brooks and Henry were trying to create. Brooks refused to make these changes, and ABC passed on the show entirely. That turned out to be a catastrophic decision. NBC immediately picked up Get Smart, and when it premiered in September of 1965, it became an instant sensation, quickly climbing into the top 10 most-watched shows of the entire 1965 to 66 season. Meanwhile, ABC executives could only watch helplessly as their rejected show became one of the biggest hits on television. In a desperate attempt to compete with the spy comedy they'd foolishly turned down, ABC rushed the double life of Henry Phyfe into production and onto the airwaves in January of 1966. The network was so panicked about missing out on the spy comedy trend that they didn't give the show enough time to develop properly, which would ultimately seal its fate before it even had a chance to find an audience. Fact 2. TV's first second season guinea pig. The double life of Henry Phyfe holds a unique place in television history as one of the very first shows to premiere during what ABC boldly called the second season, a concept that had never existed before in television. In January of 1966, ABC took the unprecedented step of essentially restarting their entire programming schedule mid-year, pulling struggling fall shows and replacing them with brand new series in the middle of the traditional TV season. The network actually promoted this radical idea with advertising that proclaimed, "Nothing like this ever happened in television before," and exciting new season starting right now in January. In the next 2 weeks alone, 4 completely new shows. Shows so great they couldn't wait till fall. Henry Phyfe was one of those 4 chosen shows, premiering alongside the British import The Baron, Robert Goulet's dramatic spy series Blue Light, and most importantly, the cultural phenomenon Batman. ABC also used this second season launch to announce that these new shows would be broadcast in color as the network was finally transitioning away from black and white television. The ratings for all 4 shows were strong in their first week, giving ABC hope that their gamble might pay off. However, that success lasted only for Batman, which became an immediate smash hit. Henry Phyfe quickly dropped to last place in its Thursday night 8:30 time slot, losing badly to CBS's My Three Sons and NBC's Laredo. What ABC didn't realize at the time was that they had just opened Pandora's box for television scheduling. This moment in January of 1966 marked the beginning of the end for stable TV schedules, leading to the quick hook culture of mid-season replacements that would dominate television for decades to come. Fact 3. Future Bob Newhart star lost the lead. Before Red Buttons was cast as the bumbling spy Henry Phyfe, another actor came very close to landing the role, and that actor was Peter Bonners, who would go on to become a beloved television star just a few years later. Bonners auditioned for the lead role of Henry Phyfe and apparently made enough of an impression that he was seriously considered for the part. But ultimately, the producers decided to go with the more established name of Red Buttons instead. At the time of the audition in 1965, Bonners was still a relative newcomer to television, having just made his TV debut on The Addams Family in a guest role, so it's understandable why the network would have preferred someone with Button's track record and name recognition. Losing the role of Henry Phyfe turned out to be a blessing in disguise for Bonners, because just 6 years later, in 1972, he was cast as Dr. Jerry Robinson, the wisecracking orthodontist on The Bob Newhart Show, a role that would make him famous and beloved by millions of viewers. Bonners played the character for the show's entire 6-season run and became one of the most memorable supporting characters in sitcom history. Interestingly, Bonners later recalled his experience auditioning for Henry Phyfe in interviews with the Television Academy, acknowledging that he didn't get the series but never expressing any bitterness about it. Meanwhile, Red Buttons got the role and starred in all 17 episodes of The Double Life of Henry Phyfe. But the show's quick cancellation meant that Buttons' return to weekly television was short-lived, while Bonners went on to enjoy a long and successful career, both as an actor and later as a prolific television director. Fact 4. The awkward 19-year age gap romance. One of the most glaring problems with The Double Life of Henry Phyfe was the romantic pairing at the center of the show, which featured a significant and very noticeable age difference that made viewers uncomfortable. Red Buttons, who played the title character Henry Phyfe, was 47 years old when the series premiered in January of 1966, while his on-screen girlfriend Judy was played by 28-year-old actress Zeme North, creating a 19-year age gap that was impossible to ignore. Contemporary television critics and reviewers specifically called out this casting choice as one of the show's major weaknesses, describing the attempted romance between the two characters as uncomfortable, unconvincing, and simply unbelievable to watch. The age difference became even more apparent in episodes where Henry was supposed to be nervously courting Judy or trying to win over her disapproving mother, because Buttons looked old enough to be dating the mother rather than the daughter. Critics noted that North did her best with the cliché and poorly written character she was given. But there was simply no chemistry between the two actors, and the romantic subplot felt forced and awkward every time it appeared on screen. This casting decision reflected the show's rushed development, as the producers seemed more focused on getting a recognizable name, like Red Buttons, in the lead role, rather than thinking about whether he was actually right for a character who was supposed to be a young, mild-mannered accountant navigating both his job and his love life. The uncomfortable age gap in the central romance was just one more element that prevented audiences from connecting with the show and contributed to its rapid decline in the ratings. Fact 5. The theme song that spoiled everything. The Double Life of Henry Phyfe had one of the most unusual theme songs in television history, and it was composed by none other than Vic Mizzy, the legendary composer who had already created the iconic themes for The Addams Family and Green Acres. However, unlike those catchy and mysterious openings, the Henry Phyfe theme song took a completely different approach by literally explaining the entire premise of the show in explicit detail, spoiling what would normally be revealed through the pilot episode. What made it even stranger was that the theme was partly performed by Fred Clark, who played Spy Chief Gerald Hanahan on the show, and he didn't actually sing it in a traditional way, but instead sang his lines in a style similar to Rex Harrison in My Fair Lady. The lyrics walked viewers through exactly how the show's premise came to be, narrating in detail that there was a great spy codenamed U-31 who was killed in a hit-and-run accident on his very first day in America because he looked the wrong way when crossing the street. The theme then continued by having Clark's character ask who could possibly replace this spy, before dramatically turning to Red Buttons' character and declaring Henry Phyfe as the answer. This meant that every single episode opened with a complete recap of the show's backstory, leaving absolutely nothing to the imagination and removing any potential mystery or intrigue that might have drawn viewers in. While Mizzy's other TV themes became beloved classics that people still remember and hum today, the Henry Phyfe theme song is largely forgotten, remembered only as an odd curiosity that exemplified the show's confused approach to storytelling. Fact 6. Fred Clark died 2 years later. The tragic and untimely death of Fred Clark, who played the exasperated spy chief Gerald Hanahan on The Double Life of Henry Phyfe, cast a sad shadow over the show's brief legacy. Clark passed away on December 5, 1968, just 2 years after the series ended its short run, dying from complications related to liver disease at the shockingly young age of 54. His sudden death was devastating to Hollywood, as Clark had been a respected and prolific character actor who appeared in nearly 70 films and countless television shows over his 20-year career, including memorable roles in classics like Sunset Boulevard, White Heat, and Auntie Mame. The timing of Clark's death led some television historians and fans to wonder whether the show's producers had any knowledge of his declining health during the filming of Henry Phyfe in early 1966. One viewer who remembered watching the show as a child later speculated in online forums about whether the producers might have realized that Clark wouldn't be able to sustain a long-running series, which could have been another factor in the show's cancellation beyond just poor ratings. However, there's no concrete evidence to support this theory, and it's more likely that Clark's liver disease developed or worsened in the 2 years following the show's end. What makes his death even more poignant is that Clark had only recently remarried in 1966 to a model named Gloria Glazer, and they had barely 2 years together before his passing. His performance as the perpetually frustrated Hanahan trying to manage the incompetent Henry Phyfe remains one of his final television roles, and Hollywood mourned the loss of one of its finest comic character actors. Fact 7. Red Button's notorious past returned. Red Buttons arrived on The Double Life of Henry Phyfe with a notorious reputation from his previous television experience, and industry insiders wondered whether history would repeat itself. Back in the early 1950s, Buttons had starred in The Red Buttons Show, a variety program on CBS that became a massive hit in its first season and earned him an Emmy Award for Best Comedian. However, the second season turned into what chroniclers later called one of the most severe falls from grace in comedy history, as Buttons' ego and anxiety spiraled out of control, and he systematically destroyed his own show from within. He routinely fired employees after only a few weeks on the job, burned through writers at an alarming rate, and created such chaos that the show went through 9 new writers within just a 3-week period at one point. His secretary reportedly said that Buttons scared her on Monday nights because he didn't make sense, and one anonymous CBS executive complained that Buttons wanted to be the head writer, producer, director, music director, choreographer, and everything else all at once. When The Double Life of Henry Phyfe began having problems during its brief run in 1966, some observers in the television industry quietly wondered whether Buttons had reverted to his old controlling and difficult behavior, potentially driving away the writing staff and contributing to the show's creative struggles. Veteran television viewers who remembered the show later speculated online about whether Buttons started throwing his weight around with the Henry Phyfe writers just as he had done on his variety show, creating tensions that made it impossible for the series to find its footing. While there's no definitive proof that Buttons repeated his destructive patterns, the lingering questions about his involvement in the show's chaos remain part of Henry Phyfe's troubled legacy. Fact 8. The producer swap mid-season. The Double Life of Henry Phyfe underwent a major behind-the-scenes shakeup partway through its 17-episode run when Luther Davis, who had created the show and served as its original producer, was replaced by a completely different producer with an entirely different vision for the series. The new producer brought in to take over was Nat Perrin, a legendary comedy writer who had gotten his start writing for Groucho Marx and had more recently produced the hit sitcom The Addams Family, giving him serious credentials in the world of television comedy. This wasn't just a minor personnel change, but rather a fundamental shift in the show's creative leadership that would alter the direction of the entire series. Under Davis's original vision, Henry Phyfe had been structured as a family sitcom with spy elements mixed in, focusing heavily on Henry's relationships with his girlfriend Judy, her disapproving mother Florence, and his boss at the accounting firm where he worked. The show spent significant time on domestic comedy situations and Henry's attempts to maintain his normal life while hiding his secret spy activities. However, when Perrin took over as producer, he steered the show away from the family sitcom format and pushed it more toward pure spy comedy, de-emphasizing or eliminating the domestic storylines that had characterized the early episodes. Television reviewers who watched the later episodes noted that the show felt fresher and funnier once it moved away from the tired family sitcom tropes and focused more on the espionage missions themselves. Unfortunately, this creative transformation came too late to save the series, as the ratings had already dropped significantly and ABC had essentially given up on the show by that point. Fact 9. The girlfriend and mother mysteriously vanished. One of the strangest aspects of the double life of Henry Phyfe was the sudden and unexplained disappearance of two major characters halfway through the show's brief 17-episode run. Henry's girlfriend, Judy, played by Zeme North, and her mother, Florence Kimball, played by Marge Redmond, were central characters in the early episodes of the series, appearing regularly as Henry tried to balance his secret spy life with his normal relationships. The entire premise of the early episodes revolved around Henry having to lie to these women about where he was going and what he was doing, creating sitcom complications when his spy missions interfered with dates or family gatherings that Judy and her mother had planned. Then, without any explanation or farewell episode, both characters simply stopped appearing in the show entirely. The series just moved forward as if Judy and Florence had never existed, and Henry's personal life was no longer mentioned or explored in any meaningful way. This dramatic shift happened right around the time that producer Nat Perrin took over the show and decided to transform it from a family-oriented sitcom into a straightforward spy comedy focused entirely on Henry's espionage missions. The disappearance of these characters was so abrupt that it confused viewers who had been following the show, as there was no breakup scene, no moving away subplot, and no acknowledgement whatsoever that Henry had apparently lost his girlfriend and her mother from his life. This bizarre creative decision reflected the show's desperate attempt to find a format that would work and attract viewers. But by eliminating characters without explanation, it only added to the sense that Henry Phyfe was a chaotic production that didn't know what it wanted to be. Factor 10. The Flintstone copycat connection. Just a few months after the double life of Henry Phyfe ended its brief run and disappeared from television screens, an animated theatrical film premiered that used the exact same premise, raising questions about whether the filmmakers had been inspired by the short-lived sitcom. The Man Called Flintstone, a feature-length movie starring Fred Flintstone and the rest of the beloved Hanna-Barbera characters, hit theaters in August of 1966 and told the story of an ordinary prehistoric family man who gets recruited by a secret agent organization to impersonate a spy who happens to look exactly like him. The similarity to Henry Phyfe's premise was impossible to miss, as both stories centered on an average, unexceptional man who suddenly finds himself thrust into the dangerous world of espionage because he's a dead ringer for a professional spy. In The Man Called Flintstone, Fred is approached by the government agency because their top agent, Rock, Slag, has been injured and needs someone to take his place on an important mission, and Fred happens to be identical to Slag in appearance despite being completely unqualified for spy work. This is essentially the same setup as Henry Phyfe, where mild-mannered accountant Henry has to impersonate the deceased super spy U-31 because they look alike, even though Henry lacks all of the skills and expertise that the real spy possessed. The premise of an ordinary person impersonating someone important has roots in classic literature like The Prisoner of Zenda. So, it's possible that both Henry Phyfe and The Man Called Flintstone were independently drawing from the same literary tradition. But the timing of the Flintstone movie's release so soon after the TV show's cancellation remains a curious coincidence. Fact 11. Blame the network for failure. As the double life of Henry Phyfe limped toward its inevitable cancellation in the spring of 1966, the president of Filmway's TV production decided to publicly point fingers at who he believed was really responsible for the show's failure. In an interview published in Broadcasting Magazine on April 18, 1966, Al Simon directly blamed ABC for the show's demise, arguing that the network had rushed Henry Phyfe onto the air far too quickly without giving it adequate time to develop properly, and then pulled the plug on it too soon before the show could figure out what was working and what wasn't. Simon's comments were unusually candid for a television executive, as most producers tend to avoid publicly criticizing the networks they work with. But he clearly felt that Henry Phyfe had been set up to fail from the very beginning. Simon's criticism highlighted a fundamental problem with ABC's desperate strategy of launching their experimental second season in January of 1966, as the network was so eager to compete with NBC's hit spy comedy, Get Smart, that they pushed multiple shows into production and onto the air before they were ready. His argument was that Henry Phyfe needed time to find its voice and discover the right balance between spy comedy and sitcom elements. But ABC's impatience meant the show never got that crucial development period. Simon's excuse about being rushed and canceled too quickly would become a common refrain for many failed television series over the following decades. But in the case of Henry Phyfe, there was genuine truth to his complaint, as the show did seem to be improving and finding a better direction in its later episodes under producer Nat Perrin's guidance, just as ABC decided to end it. Fact 12. European spy dies looking the wrong way. The entire premise of the double life of Henry Phyfe was built on one of the darkest and most absurdly comedic origin stories in television history, involving the accidental death of a highly trained international spy due to a simple cultural mistake. The show's backstory explained that a top foreign agent codenamed U-31, who was described as one of the most effective spies in the world, had arrived in America for his very first mission and was immediately being pursued by government agents who wanted to capture him and turn him into a double agent. However, during the chase through city streets, U-31 made a fatal error that came from his European background and instincts. Because the spy came from a country where traffic flows on the opposite side of the road compared to America, he looked the wrong direction when attempting to cross the street while fleeing from his pursuers. In European countries like England, pedestrians are trained to look right first when crossing because cars approach from that direction. But in America, traffic comes from the left, so pedestrians naturally look left first to check for oncoming vehicles. U-31 automatically looked right to left out of pure habit from living his entire life in Europe, completely missing the car that was approaching from the opposite direction, and he was struck and killed in a hit-and-run accident right there on the street. This darkly comedic death set the entire series in motion, as the American intelligence agency then had to scramble to find someone who looked exactly like U-31 to take his place, which is how they discovered the mild-mannered accountant Henry Phyfe, who happened to be the spy's exact double despite having none of his skills or training. Fact 13. Cast members listed but never appeared. One of the clearest signs of the behind-the-scenes chaos plaguing the double life of Henry Phyfe can be found in the credits of at least one episode, where two actresses were listed as appearing in the show despite never actually showing up on screen at all. The episode titled The Reluctant Lover, which aired on February 10, 1966, featured opening credits that listed both Zime North, who played Henry's girlfriend Judy, and Marge Redmond, who played Judy's mother Florence, as cast members for that particular episode. However, when viewers watched the actual episode, neither actress appeared in a single scene, and their characters were never mentioned or referenced throughout the entire 30-minute runtime. This strange discrepancy suggests that significant last-minute changes must have been made to the episode after the credits had already been finalized, indicating either major script rewrites or hasty re-editing of filmed material that removed entire storylines involving these characters. It's possible that scenes featuring North and Redmond were actually filmed for the episode, but then cut out during the editing process, perhaps because the producers decided the domestic subplot wasn't working, or because they were trying to shift the show away from its family sitcom elements toward pure spy comedy. Alternatively, the scenes might have been planned and listed in the credits, but never actually filmed due to time constraints or budget issues. Whatever the reason, having actors credited for an episode they don't appear in is highly unusual in television production and points to the rushed and disorganized nature of Henry Phyfe's production, where decisions were being made on the fly without proper coordination between different departments. Fact 14. Lasted 17 episodes and disappeared. The double life of Henry Phyfe had a remarkably short lifespan, managing to produce only 17 episodes before ABC pulled the plug and removed it from the schedule entirely. When the show premiered in January of 1966, ABC had promoted it heavily as part of their bold new second season initiative, emphasizing that it would be broadcast in full color as the network transitioned away from black and white television. The initial ratings for the first week were actually quite promising, with Henry Phyfe attracting a decent audience alongside the other new shows launching that month. But those early numbers were misleading and didn't last beyond the premiere. Within just a few weeks, Henry Phyfe began a steep ratings decline and quickly fell to dead last place in its Thursday night 8:30 time slot, getting crushed by the competition on the other two major networks. CBS aired the popular family sitcom My Three Sons in that same time period, which consistently won the slot with strong viewership, while NBC's Western series Laredo came in second place, leaving Henry Phyfe trailing far behind in third. The show simply couldn't compete with these more established programs, and viewers who might have been curious about the spy comedy premise apparently decided it wasn't worth watching after giving it a try. ABC kept the show on the air through the spring, allowing it to finish airing all 17 episodes that had been produced, with the final episode quietly appearing on May 5, 1966. After that, Henry Phyfe vanished from television completely, never returning in reruns or syndication, becoming one of those forgotten shows that existed for just a brief moment before disappearing into obscurity. Fact 15. Red Buttons return after 11 years. The double life of Henry Phyfe represented a major career milestone for Red Buttons, as it marked his highly anticipated return to weekly television after an 11-year absence from the small screen. Buttons had last starred in a regular television series back in 1955, when his variety show ended its tumultuous run, and in the years since then, he had completely shifted his focus to film work and had become a respected movie actor. His career transformation reached its peak in 1957 when he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his powerful dramatic performance in Sayonara, starring alongside Marlon Brando in the film about an American soldier who falls in love with a Japanese woman during the Korean War. After winning his Oscar, Buttons worked steadily in Hollywood and appeared in 15 different motion pictures. During that 11-year period away from television, building a solid reputation as a serious actor who could handle both comedic and dramatic roles. He had featured roles in major films like The Longest Day and was nominated for Golden Globe Awards for his performances in Harlow and They Shoot Horses Don't They, proving that his Oscar win wasn't just a fluke. Given this impressive film career and his status as an Academy Award winner, Buttons' decision to return to weekly television with Henry Phyfe in 1966 seemed like it should have been a triumphant comeback that would introduce him to a whole new generation of television viewers. Instead, the show's quick failure and cancellation after just 17 episodes made his return to TV a disappointing chapter in his career, though Buttons would continue working successfully in both film and television for decades to come.